Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me fine? The rebuilding of research payments, I wish that was the topic, right? This is about the rebundling of research payments. Okay, so maybe just to set the scene a little bit here. On our numbers, still about 70% of the domestic wallet is bundled, right? So a lot of clients have chosen to continue to leverage their broader commission pool to pay for the broader range of services that we provide. But it's been a hell of a dominant topic offshore, and it's been something that has undoubtedly shaped the ecosystem within which we operate. For the purposes of this, I mean, look, it's our job to read, to understand, to know a bunch about this stuff, so I like to think I know a bit about it. But I'm also going to leverage for this presentation on a number of conversations I had towards the back end of last year. I was in London seeing a bunch of our global clients and specifically discussed this with a number of them. And then two, we have a UK business that has been like right at the front end of the squeeze, okay? So our UK business is quite research heavy. It's focused more on the sort of small and mid-cap space in the UK. And again, that has been at the epicenter of this crash. But also, interestingly, is at the epicenter of where regulators are trying to rebuild again, okay? So I'm going to have a stab at a couple of things. I'm guaranteed to get a bunch wrong, but I'm not going to sit on the fence. And two, we're going to try and turn a 20-minute prezzo into 10 to make sure we stay on time. And three, like questions, please hit me up. I mean, I'll try and get through a little bit of content, but you're most welcome to hit me up at the end. Let's chat and debate. Let me just move to the next one. Okay, cool. So my sense is you can't look at this topic in isolation, okay? And certainly when you think about the broader ecosystem within which we operate. And the we I'm talking about is the broader broking community and our clients, which in this case are going to be the active asset managers, right? Of which a number of you are represented here today, okay? So I'm saying MiFID II has coincided with this, okay? So increased regulatory burden, we see it everywhere, we live it, it's a disaster. Increased costs for an ecosystem under pressure, right? Why? I mean, again, to that fourth point there, I mean, we've seen huge active asset management AUM losses and the resultant negative jaws, right? So cost up, AUM down. It's a disaster for these business models. Look at any of the big listed active asset managers. They've had a really, really tough time. That's coincided also with a period of concentrated market returns, right? Where the biggest have just got bigger. It's been compounded by passive. You get the picture. That gutting and juniorization of the sell side is something that we've all experienced, right? And it is a direct response to a business model that has been placed under real threat, okay? If clients aren't paying for something and you're trying to keep the lights on, you will adjust your cost base accordingly, all right? This next point is step change lower in the quantum and quality of sell-side coverage. Again, we can't hide away from this. And I think, you know, we debate whether this is structural or cyclical. I mean, there's a real argument to be made that this is structural, right? And to the detriment of us all as our frame. And, I mean, we all see it out there. I mean, this is an industry, you know, sell-side research is not this kind of like really aspirational thing it used to be, right? It just is not. All of us can see we're not getting these like really smart youngsters flowing through these days. This next point is huge, a substantial derating and squeeze on access to capital for smaller businesses. We see it in the JSE. We've seen it globally, right? Where smaller businesses aren't getting covered, they aren't getting exposed to a broader market who's increasingly focused on just the biggest of the big. And again, these businesses are struggling to grow. They're struggling to raise capital. They're struggling to employ more people, et cetera, et cetera. And this last point is a really interesting one, right? The massive double between what clients are paying for liquidity versus IP, okay? Now, I personally, and the business I run, will always be a strong believer in the value of IP, okay? Like, we really back the work we do and the extent to which we genuinely believe it adds value. And again, all we want to do is leverage that to the benefit of our clients to help them outperform. That said, we have a number of clients now where we're getting paid somewhere between, you know, like maybe 10 times more for basically trading and liquidity services than we are for IP. And if I'm messing it up, that number could be bigger, to be honest with you. Okay, so in sum, what we've got here is a self-reinforcing negative spiral, okay? So it's bad for the active industry as well as the sell side. I mean, we've been gutted at the same time as a number of active managers have underperformed, okay? This isn't a coincidence, you know? Like, whatever the stat is, pick one. 80% of active managers have underperformed. 70, whatever the hell it is. It's a lot, okay? It's bad for market breadth. And this is the biggest point here. This regulation, the unintended consequence here is that it's bad for the end saver, right? So MiFID was put in place to make sure that the wallets and research payments were dealt with respectfully in a way that could be monitored and to stop any abuse, okay? What's happened is that the pension fund industry is still very overweight active, okay? And it's that same pensioner who's now been subject to this underperformance, right? It's the same pensioner who's now at like a smaller company who's trapped, that can't raise equity, that's not growing, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. And that links into the top point, where it's been bad for economic growth. That's my view, okay? So where to from here? And has this horse bolted, right? So this deregulation theme is like a massive one, right? The state's obviously leading the charge led by Trump, but I am so encouraged by what I'm seeing playing out in Europe. And it's not got to do with a shift in policy, ideology. It is to survive. It is to remain relevant in a world where one of the more deregulated markets is putting the hammer down on that same theme, okay? So UK, European markets have to respond, right? Regulators are finding reverse gear. The unintended consequences, per the slides before, have far outweighed the pros. That I can actually see on a spreadsheet what someone happens to be paying for a telco analyst. I mean, yay. I mean, that's literally like the benefit of this stuff. And obviously, to the underlying asset manager, you've seen a reduction in your overall research costs, but now you've taken that on P&L as well. Okay, so you've taken an income statement hit as well, right? The conversation I had with clients in the UK was super encouraging, right? They all wanted to be part of a solution, and there's a circular point here that I'll get to, but it's because they want to be in their regulators' good books as well. The regulator's saying, guys, look, we've all messed this up. All of us want a more vibrant market. We want more listings. We want smaller companies to be able to raise capital, hire people, blah, blah, blah. But the asset managers, I got a really firm sense that they want to be part of the solution now. It's no longer cool to be like telling your mate how you've managed to smash your research budget by like another 20%. They can now leverage commissions for research, okay? And this across the board I'm seeing. And it's not going to be a huge change. It's not like I'm going to double. But I mean, my bet would be something like comfortable double-digit year-on-year growth for research wallets of like our main clients, like the big sort of brand name asset managers offshore. The last point there is something that I want to jump onto, okay? This was super interesting, okay? So you're an asset manager that's sitting in the UK. You've underperformed your benchmark, okay? These guys are going back to their bosses and saying, listen, like, what do you expect, my man? You've cut my research budget to nothing. I no longer have access to like the smartest minds on the sell side, blah, blah, blah. And then you come and have a go at me for underperforming. You know, and this is what I want to be so firm on here. Like, the more and more I thought about this, the more and more it re-emphasized this view that I've always had, is that we're a team in this thing, right? And we sort of bound at the hip. If we completely fall out, there is going to be some impact on the buy side, irrespective of how big your research teams are and how smart you are. The sell side industry wouldn't have survived this long if it didn't have a value proposition, okay? And that was something that really stood out for me, is these guys saying, shit, I need access to a bigger research wallet. And then if you're a manager of that portfolio, you're running whatever it is, X asset manager, you say, look, I need to take every barrier out the way for this like Freddie to outperform. So I'm going to give him the research budget that he needs, and then he better bloody do it. Otherwise, we're going to have a very tough chat the next year. Okay. So those are the sort of points made there. The practical implications. What are we going to see? This is just sort of having a stab at where I think things land. As I said, I'm probably going to be wrong on a bunch of them, but this is my view. We are not going to see a wholesale reversal of current practice. Again, there's been huge investment in systems, workflows, et cetera, to administer a MiFID II environment, right? This egg isn't going to be unscrambled overnight just because there's a bit of deregulation happening, okay? And again, the buy side will want to retain some of the benefits of this, right? Again, IP for a cheaper price is a cool thing for our clients. I mean, some of the nuances here that are like ludicrous, okay? If you actually get into the detail of this, research is being rebundled, but corporate access isn't, okay? So, you know, if you're a US firm and you want to go to a conference and you want one-on-ones with the biggest consumer staples companies in the world, you can leverage your commission pool to make sure you get those one-on-one meetings. But a UK or European asset manager is still stuck with paying the rate card of $100, $200, $300 per meeting, or like $1,000 a day, or whatever their rate card tells them, okay? Who do you think is going to get the meetings? Okay? Freddie at big US asset management firm is going to be in every single bloody one-on-one when, you know, the European guy is going to be stuck in a meeting this big. The wholesale adoption of CSA agreements was something that like really, really stood out to me, okay? And interestingly, not RPAs, which I thought was sort of where they were like more in vogue as far as these UK and European asset managers were concerned. But you're going to see this, and you're seeing some of the big bulge bracket firms already hire up like big CSA teams. These commission pools are going to very much be sweat. Okay, this is a model like we really advocate for. We run CSAs for a huge chunk of the domestic asset management industry, and I think it is like a non-negotiable. I think you can get really good bang for buck out of these things. And again, it is to the benefit of your end client and hopefully your performance, okay? The double's going to narrow between what is currently paid for research and liquidity. To my point earlier, you know, liquidity is a premium product, right? And it's a non-negotiable that you play in size in that market, especially in cash equities where scales are non-negotiable. But, you know, if someone's paying you $1 million for research and $20 million for execution, I think in a year or two that's going to be, you know, like $5 million for the IP side of the equation and $15 million for the balance. I think that mean reverts a bit, right? Not all the way, but I think it mean reverts a bit. The lines will blur between desk and portfolio manager. Now, there's some firms where this will 100% not happen. You know, there's, again, some of the places we all go travel in the UK and Europe, if a portfolio manager steps into the dealing room, he gets told to get lost, okay? That is not his realm, okay? But I haven't been in this many meetings where there are a dealer and a portfolio manager sitting in the same meeting. And then two, as I said, I think they're working more as a team to make sure that value is rewarded. There's a best X requirements. They're not going to get away from it. If you don't have the right flow, you're not going to get paid. End of story, okay? But if you're thereabouts and you've done some bloody good work for them of late, you're going to get that ticket ahead of someone else that's in a roughly similar position, okay? And I think those blurring of lines we're going to see more and more. That said, the sell side's going to think very carefully about restaffing. Okay, there is a hell of a lot of scar tissue here. These business models have changed. They've changed a lot, right? And I think it would be naive to think that there's going to be this wholesale restaffing based on sort of hope. It very, very much is a show-me story. But that is the last point there, and I think that's what this is all about, okay? Like, we are so desperate to leverage what goes on between our ears to try and help our clients, okay? And this is about an ecosystem rather than a piece of legislation, okay? If we as the sell side and our active clients aren't able to outperform, like, we got to question all our relevance, right? The passive flows will continue, whatever. Everyone's just going to double down on all the sort of big capital Mag 7 plays, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. But this broader ecosystem is a thing that I would all encourage us to really sort of like nurture and get behind. And that is it from me. And if there are any questions, you're most welcome to fire them over. Hey.
I didn't think I needed it, but well, it's taken some years to get us here. You know, how long do you really think it's going to take us to get out of this? Because we've been hearing this from various corners, but you know, some people want their cake and they want to eat it. And how long How long do you really think it's going to take us out of this? And what do you think we actually need to do? Because I mean, even though going to Operation Phumelela, there's been a lot of inertia about action, and I think we're getting out of that hole. You know, what do you think everyone here needs to do, and how do we do it?
Look, I think I think there's two things, okay? And we've all seen, different clients have embraced our offering in different ways over time, okay? I think that the sell side is an incredibly powerful resource, A, to get IP, but B, to like really, really ensure cost-income ratios stay low. I mean, some of the most efficient asset managers I've seen are ones that have kept their teams sort of small but heavy-hitting and been very, very deliberate in partnering with like 3 people on this, 2 on that, paying them incredibly well, but if you mess up or you mess them around, you're gone, and it recycles, okay? So I think this spirit of real partnership needs to come back. I mean, sometimes the relationship feels a bit adversarial, and the odd client thinks, that there's almost this perception that you're trying to get away with something, and it's not the case. Like, I would say, I mean, there's maybe 90-something% of the people in this room just genuinely want to do well by their clients. That is what we want to do. We want them to win, right? And then the sell side's got to grow a pair, okay? If you keep selling your IP for 0, okay, you're on a hiding to nothing, right? And again, if there is no value there, and if people are not willing to pay for it, it tells you everything you need to know about your product and whatever, okay? But you need to draw some sort of line in the sand and say, I stand for X, and I think that it's worth whatever, And I think it's a combination of those 2 things. It's a partnership, but a boundary as well. We've got like 3 minutes, and we're already running over. So let's maybe like 1 or 2 questions in. Okay.
Will, just on the side of third-party research providers, are they a threat to the sales side, if I can use that word, or are they growing? How do they come into this picture? I see my house as well. They use quite a lot of these research houses, and we have to pay them somehow. But just on this landscape of sell side, buy side, these research, how do they come in?
I mean, like look, there's what I believe a business model should look like. We remain very firm that we want to provide as broad a possible ecosystem to allow us to capture different points and to be able to pair off sort of more annuity revenue streams to offset some of the cyclical nature of the rest of our business. I mean, I've genuinely been in business sort of strategy debates, this is a long time ago, where a fully fledged desk was actually questioning the value of having that desk, okay? If you think that you can get paid for your IP via a check, okay, why would you want to put up with the cost and infrastructure of maintaining that trading desk, okay? And I think these independent research providers have a real role to play. And I think the competition's wonderful. I mean, again, if you can get better value for some guy who's sitting in Hong Kong in his garage writing cool stuff and coming up with good ideas that make you money, and that's worth more to you than someone sitting in a big brand bank, pay him all day, any day. IP needs to stand up on its own 2 feet, 100%, yeah. Halleck.
Well, thanks. I think it's a really important topic. Just in your example of the zero-sum game, where it's gone from 1 and 19 to 5 and 15, is the assumption that when Freddie gets his increased research budget, he's going to have more concentrated, higher conviction, longer held positions, and less turnover? And how do you see the kind of liquidity trade-off there?
Yeah, I get your point. No, and I completely understand where you're coming from. I don't think, I'm just using this sort of philosophically to illustrate the point. I don't think you see a major shift in trading patterns, but what I do think is that you collect the same 20 nominal, and instead of paying away 1 to research providers, you'll be paying away 5. So again, and that will include the increased use of CSAs and all that sort of stuff. But no, I don't think we see a wholesale shift in trading patterns. I mean, the investment process will largely stay the same. What's happening?
How's it, Will?
Hey.
Thanks for the great discussion and the honesty. So the big elephant in the room, often buy side, sell side, is commission rates going to 0.
Yeah.
So exponentially, everything goes up, and you have to pay somewhere, but com rates keep on falling.
Yeah.
And ultimately, as you say, you have to then sit back and look at what can we pay for, what can't we. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so look, I mean, again, it feels like we're sort of globally close to some sort of bottom. I mean, you know, a lot of flows are priced on a cost plus model. There's not really like a lot of fat there as well. Look, we have, I don't really want to get into details here because we have a very deliberate strategy around this that I think solves for a client problem as well as our own problem. I think that there's just a number of considerations here. There's a number of clients that are that have a number of tough conversations around total expense ratios, etc. There's stuff you can do to help there. There's stuff you can do to sweat wallets better. But I think the overarching principle is that in any of these conversations and deals that are done, both parties need to be better off. Okay, and you need a certain wallet to provide for that. I mean, I think commission rates will go up a little bit. Okay, and the reason is because if I'm leveraging a CSA, I want to make sure there's something in that pot. You know, like if I'm optimally paying a couple more people, I'm still leveraging that to my benefit. But if I'm paying almost nothing, I can't be cutting out 30% of nothing. You know, so I think that's roughly the balance. But I hope it gives you a bit of a sense, Erica. And unfortunately, we're out of time. But anyway, thanks very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.